Hi, my name's Lindsay and I work for a local organisation called Future Connect. Future Connect helps to create opportunities that lead to improving education, training and employment pathways for young people in Brimbank and Melton. In today's career chat, we are joined by David, who is a trainer at AGA and has been working as a qualified electrician for over 30 years. Welcome, David, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, great to be here.
Thank you. Now we're going to jump straight into it today because we've got a few questions to cover. So tell us, David, tell us about your career journey. How did you get to where you are today?
Okay, so back in secondary school, I found that I was interested in subjects such as maths and science. Wasn't that good in English. But I was also really interested in the hands-on trades like the woodwork, the metal trades, the electronic trades. So yeah, I decided to go down the tradie path.
Excellent.
So when I was in year 11, I started applying for job applications, mainly electrical apprenticeships, and I was lucky to get an electrical apprenticeship with General Motors Holden plant in GMH. So that was excellent. Pretty good.
Yeah. And so you did your apprenticeship with them, and that was 3 or 4 years then? How long?
Yeah, so no, it was always a 4-year electrical apprentice.
Yeah.
Back then we only went to school for 3 years. Now you go to school for 4 years, 1 day a week. Yeah. And yeah, and there is quite a bit of study to do.
And then when you finished your apprenticeship with General Motors, where did you then work? What area within GM Motors?
Yep. Okay. So within GMH, I was trained as an industrial electrician. Mm-hmm. So I got to do a bit of factory wiring, but I also got to do machine breakdown, which is what maintenance electricians would do.
Yeah.
So once I finished my apprenticeship, I went to work for a contractor, and I was heavily involved in industrial wiring, so wiring up factories and still doing factory breakdowns as well.
Yeah.
And from there, I specialised in automation. So all those machines that do automatic movements in a factory, mm-hmm. I design those programs and do those CAD drawings for those programs. So
okay, yeah,
so it's quite an interesting job. I still do that today.
Yeah.
And yeah, and from there I also got into teaching. So I branched out to 2 different branches: automation and control, and teaching.
Fantastic. And how long have you been teaching for?
I've been teaching for quite a while now, maybe 18 years. So
okay, yeah, so it's a long time.
Long time, yeah.
And isn't it good to know that as a trainer in industry, to have experienced industry and working with apprentices out there and knowing how you can really benefit them in their education as a trainer so that they become more of that complete, not package, but employee, if that makes sense.
Yep. So here at AGA, where I teach, we do simulate workplace environment, and and it's simulating workplace scenarios, and they're running cables and doing what they should be doing when they're an electrician out on the job. Excellent. And and all the trainers here are experienced as well.
Yeah, excellent. Now tell me, we're going to look at this next question in 2 parts. So I want you to think back to the early days when you started your apprenticeship. What did your average day look like? What sort of things were you doing?
Yeah, well, as an apprentice, it was always really hard to go to work because all apprentices had a good social life in those days. But so once you got to work, the areas I was in was mainly maintenance and factory breakdowns. So you would log onto the computer and see if there was any emergency breakdowns to attend to. If there wasn't, then you would do preventative maintenance. So for each job, you had to fill in a little JSA, a job safety analysis. So you had to make sure that you always were thinking about safety. So, and after each job, we would fill in the report to say what we did, why we did it, and how you could prevent it from happening again if it was a breakdown. If there was no breakdowns, we would do preventative maintenance, from just repairing lights that weren't working to making sure everything's remains in good working order. So that's the life of a electrician that works in a factory, or a maintenance electrician.
Yeah.
So, and that was a pretty good career. It was a good job. There was always opportunities for overtime. So, you know, as a young apprentice, you had to pay off your car, so that came in handy as well.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned some of the CAD work and the design work that you do. Is that your own business that you run for that?
Yes, so that is my own business. So my main clients are other electrical contracting companies, and whenever they have technical work to do, they call me in and I'll do the technical work for them. They'll still do all the wiring, but I'll do the CAD drawings, and then I'll do all the programming and commissioning for them.
Excellent. And I imagine that when you're running your own business, it's not exactly 9 to 5, is it?
No, there's lots of after hours work as well. So the 8 to 5 is on the job working, you know, and around that you've got to be organising your jobs. You've got to be quoting your jobs. You've got to be putting in your invoices. You've got to make sure your taxes are up to date. Any paperwork you have to send to our supply authority, ESV, they've got to be sent in. So there's lots of paperwork behind the scenes.
Yeah, exactly. And so we spoke about qualifications, and we spoke about the apprenticeship. So that's one qualification that a young person might get. But from what you've spoken to me, there's so many, even just now, there's so many other things that you can learn and be qualified in. So what are some of the extra qualifications that somebody might get after their apprenticeship?
Yeah, so once you get your Certificate 3 in electrotechnology, you've got to sit an external license test with our supply authority as well. But once you become a licensed electrician, you can branch off to quite a few different fields. So you've got your domestic electrician that wires up houses. You can have your commercial electrician that wires up offices, shops, your industrial electrician that wires in warehouses and factories. You can have your special class electrician that specialises in maintaining factories, you know, doing all the machine breakdowns and all the maintenance in a factory. There's data, NBN, security, that all comes out under the electrical license. You can specialise like I did in control and automation. If you're working for a large contracting company, you can do estimating, where you estimate jobs for your contractor. You can do drafting.
Endless. It's huge, isn't it?
Yeah. Renewable energies, that's a new one. You know, and you know, with renewable energies, there's always new things coming up. Like right now, they're introducing electric cars on the road. So electricians have to go around and wire up all these electrical chargers to charge these electrical cars. You know, it's not just solar panels and wind turbines. There's always new things coming up.
Yes, and that was one of the questions that we have that we are also going to cover. But when I think about all the interviews that I've done over the last couple of weeks, this area is probably one of the biggest that's going to have the biggest changes over the next 5 years, I think. So you have spoken about the electric cars, but what are some of the other things, or where do you see the industry in 5 years' time?
Okay, so in 5 years' time and in 20 years' time, you're always going to there's always going to be a demand for electricians. That's why I love being a Sparky. And you can grow with your technology. So you can still wire up your basic house, but you know, more and more people are going to interface their house with Google and with phone apps. So, you know, while the phone app has to get connected to a controller, with an electrician has to wire up. So any new technology, the electrician has to actually interface to that technology, and that's why it's so exciting.
Because the advancements are so huge, but the human element can never be replaced either. You're always going to need that human there to do the work, to connect it all up. So yeah, you're right. Even down to the the face recognition at the door. You know, at your front door, having that all worked up. I was going to say about all the smart home yeah, you still need a person in there to connect it up initially for you.
Yep, all the fobs, you know, and all the barcode scanning and all that. At the end, you still need an electrician to wire it all up.
And there's, you spoke about lots of different pathways for an electrician, but there's also, you know, the likes of transport, there's rail, there'd be a whole other side of things, like area that they could work in as well, isn't there?
There is, and also once you've finished your apprenticeship, if you wanted to go further, you could even start studying as a electrical engineer. An electrical engineer with a electrical license is in huge demand. So
excellent, excellent. So always something different to do, and always something new to learn, that's exciting. I guess that keeps people passionate about the industry that they work in as well, doesn't it? Oh, sorry, go ahead. What are you going to say?
And it's also important to keep yourself current, because technology and standards are always changing. It's always good to keep up to date, know what's new.
Yeah, exactly. Now, we spoke about, again, qualifications, but what are some of the skills that an electrician needs on the job? So I'm thinking, well, you know, this is across the board, but communication skills would be vital when you're an electrician, problem solving, time management, those sorts of things. Can you tell us a little bit about?
So you know, as an electrician, you've got to be able to work on your own, but you also have to work well as a team, right? So you need organisation skills, because you know, you might start off on a job wiring up a house, and the phone will ring and someone will say, I'm in desperate need, I've got an emergency breakdown. So then your time management comes into place, you know, and you've always got to keep your clients up to date. You know, you can't just leave one job site to go to another job site. You've got to make sure that you're always communicating with your clients, you're always communicating with your workmates. Safety, there's a very high emphasis on safety. So, you know, you need to make sure that your communications are clear, so that everyone knows what you're doing and you know what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
So,
and your attention to detail is probably very important.
And one thing as well is you need a good level of English understandings, because all our work is guided by the Australian standards. So the Australian standards is law. So you can imagine the type of language lawyers write for our rules. So you need to understand, interpret them as well. So you need some good communication skills in that area as well.
Excellent. And with our last question, it's around, what advice do you have for a young person who might be considering a career as an electrician, or you know, where that takes them? So you've already mentioned about having that high level of English, but you mentioned earlier as well that you had a passion for maths and science as well. Yeah. So you think that those two would be beneficial?
Yep. So yeah, you need a good level of maths. Like, we're not doing any calculus or anything like that, but there are calculations. Like, we do have to calculate sizes of cable and how much power can run down a cable, and we need to do those sort of calculations, which are very important. If you get those calculations wrong, you can burn down a building, so it's very important. Yeah, you need to love you need to love being active. You know, sometimes when you're crawling under a house or in the roof of a house, you need to be able to be physical. You know, there are times you might be digging a trench, and there are other times when, you know, you could be working in an office, but mainly you're on the tools. So if you're not the type that likes being active, you know, you might not enjoy it as much. But if you love being active, it's a great lifestyle. You know, you meet lots of great people in this industry, and you actually can earn quite a good living in this industry.
Yeah.
Once you're qualified, you're recognised all over Australia. You can even work overseas as well. So it can take you a lot of places, and the electrical industry has been very good to me, and that's one of the reasons why I enjoy teaching, so I can pass that on to others.
Oh, that's excellent. And I think you know, when you are a young person, it's very hard to go, okay, well, for the next 50 years, this is what I want to be. So I guess using that opportunity while you are in year 11 or 12 to do your work experience, get a taste for what it's like, if it's possible to, make some connections with people who work in that industry. And if you're lucky to get a work placement, making sure that you're turning up on time, making sure you're using your initiative and asking questions. So do those sort of things, do you think they would kind of help a young person thinking about?
Definitely, although helps too. These days there's also certificate twos, like if you can't find an apprenticeship straight away, if you would like to do a certificate two in electrotechnology, that gives you a good taste on what the schooling's like, as well as what the trade is like.
Yeah. So, and what about, oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
And even after you complete your Cert 3, there is so many more things you can study, So in my electrical trade, I've studied up to advanced diploma, which is the first 2 years of an electrical degree. So there are so many more things you can study once you've finished your Certificate 3.
That's excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time today, David, and sharing your career path and how you got to be a trainer today. You've experienced lots of great things, and it's been so lovely to hear that you have enjoyed it all and you're passionate about the industry. So thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. Great talking to you.
Thank you.